learn the latest big reports currently surrounding Raphinha, Ousmane Dembele and Rabiot as well too. We have a ton of things to break down and discuss today, you guys. I hope you enjoy. Please continue to share your love and support and help me get over 2k likes for today's video, and most importantly, share your thoughts and opinions below in the comment section too, so we can keep this amazing dialogue going throughout the summer without wasting any more time. So let's kick things off and let's start with the first report first. So right now, let's start with the latest news currently surrounding Ousmane Dembele. Now, we have some reports that came out from Sport in Spain, as well as UK journalist Ben Jacobs as well too, where both their reports really strongly support a reality of the situation happening with the player at this point in time. Now, we already know, for example, that Paris Saint-Germain have basically turned their interest away from the player. They presented a 70 million contract offer, which, seemed to satisfy demands. However, Dembele and his group haven't acted on that whatsoever. And one of the most frustrating things about them this window is their lack of communication at this point in time. I'm going to get onto why I think this is the case, because I've already kind of alluded to this throughout in previous videos too. But Paris Saint-Germain, now that Luis Campos is here, they don't want him. Turning their attentions now to Barcelona. They have left an offer on the table for a while now, but it's still way below the demands that Dembele actually wants, and they aren't satisfying him at this point in time. Barca continue to grow quite frustrated by the delays, by the indecision, and they feel like, something has to be done at this point in time. So essentially, there seems to be no strong offers on the table for the player at this point in time. Now, of course, we know that Tuchel and Dembele has already spoken to each other. We know that Tuchel would love a reunion with the player as well too, but naturally the contract demands Dembele wants are starting to maybe, get a bit too crazy. And when you consider that this guy's liggies are literally made out of like G-string, the ligaments are made out of straw. For me, it seems a little bit comical that you can demand so much money. And of course, as I've mentioned before, one of the strategies at this point in time is to collect as much interest as possible, collect as many offers as possible as well too, to be able to strengthen your bargaining position once your contract does expire. But for that strategy to work, you need to have a lot of offers on the table, which is just not a reality at this point in time. And I'm starting to feel like maybe these guys are moving like jokers, in my opinion. I think, come on, to ask for a crazy amount of money when, the reality is there are going to be doubts surrounding your fitness and your longevity. Now, the reports from Sport have also maybe supported the same facts that Ben Jacobs have spoken about, and they mentioned the fact that maybe Dembele might have even put us off a tiny bit based on the fact that he's asked for maybe guaranteed first team player status, key player at the club. And it seems like the money and their negotiations too are a bit off-putting at this point in time. Now, nothing is saying that this deal is over. As I've been saying for a long time, once it gets to the end of this month, once his contract does officially expire, then things will happen. But for me, I'm hoping that once reality does kick in, they'll realize that if they want to earn good money still, they're going to have to lower some of their demands. So right now, we move on to the next big story that dropped today. And now let's talk the big reports currently surrounding Raphinha of Leeds. Now, interestingly enough, we just found out that Arsenal have had a bid rejected by Leeds that literally came this Tuesday. But what's also very interesting on top of this is that Raphinha sees Arsenal as his third choice option. Ideally, Barcelona were first choice. They already agreed personal terms months back, but Barca just can't afford to move anyone on, of course, to free up that wage bill and reduce the squad to be able to actually sign Raphinha to begin with. We are his second favourite option. A better option due to the fact that we have a better chance of winning, and we also have Champions League football as well too. Arsenal and Spurs are third and fourth choice after that, and we've also found out today that Todd BOEHLY has officially had contact today with Leeds for Raphinha. And I guess now, with a lot of these reports that are about to come out throughout the entire month and the next few months as well too, it seems like we are now moving away from monitoring to contact, which I guess is a more significant step. So I'm happy with that. But currently, Leeds want around 65 million, even though it was reported that maybe 50 million could be enough. If I was to take an educated guess, I think the value is between 50 to 65. But today we found out as well too that Leeds would actually like Hakim Ziyech possibly as an exchange in this deal. And for me, there's no way I could ever see Hakim Ziyech stepping down that low to sign for Leeds when this guy is a Champions League tier player. It's not going to happen. It's a very interesting story, and things just got a lot more interesting as it was revealed by the Athletic journalists in Ornstein that Tuchel has actually spoken to Raphinha and expressed a desire to potentially use the player as a wing back in our system. Now, of course, I'm sure you guys are hearing it right now. Raphinha for this buddy, a wing back, when we have Reece James, it makes no sense. But, you know, let me break it down. Hopefully at the end of my explanation, maybe things make a bit more sense. Now, we know that number one, Reece James won't be playing consistently throughout the season. You need to have rotation there. I mean, let's look at Man City as a prime example. They're trying to sign Cucurella. They have options down the right and down the left because you need rotation, one of the most physically demanding positions in a team. You know, if you're playing as a wing back, you're playing books to books. It's a lot of like interval sprints. It's a very demanding role. So you do need to have options to play there. To move on though, and to make this very fair as well too. Last season, we saw Tuchel make a big tactical shift, I'd say around like the midway point in the season. And that shift was seeing the wing backs inverting in those inner channels, with the wingers at the time like Hudson-Odoi or Hakim Ziyech being the guys to receive the ball out wide. Now this made a lot of sense, and at the time, there was a reason why we saw like a form improvement from the players, because when you have wingers in the team, wingers have to receive in space isolated out wide. Now, of course, you have players like Dembele and stuff that can receive anywhere, but not every player is as good as some of the best players like Dembele are in Europe, which is just like a common sense thing for me. So it made sense that Tuchel made the right tweaks to try and get the best out of them. We saw those form improvements. However, when ideally your preference is to have cams receiving in inner channels, when you have Mason Mount, Kai Havertz, and of course a Lukaku issue and a striker issue at the time, it's no surprise that we didn't commit to using our wingers playing out wide with wing-backs inverting for too much throughout the season. But for my final observation and reason, of course, we have seen Tuchel use the wingers as wing-backs over the past 18 months. We've seen Hudson-Odoi play as a left wing-back, right wing-back. We've seen Pulisic use on the left and down the right. We've seen Ziyech used as a wing-back too. We've seen a pattern of behaviour of wingers having starting positions as wing-backs. And that's the thing here, because even though I'm saying these things, of course, we use an asymmetrical system under Thomas Tuchel, so it's not as strict positionally as it could potentially be in other systems. But at the same time, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to equate to like the best quality, for example. And for me, it finally comes down to this. If you look at the market currently, we've looked at Klaus, we've looked at Dumfries. Who else are these wing backs that can offer competition to Reece James and others? There aren't. So for me, it kind of makes sense that Tuchel would take inspiration from his use of wingers in last season's system, as well as the fact that there aren't many like incredible wing-back options available in the market for like relative fees that could be brought in to help out Reece James and others. Now, it would be a bit surprising for me, and I've said this quite a lot. Me personally, I don't see a difference between Ziyech and Raphinha. Now, of course, people will say, oh, look at the goals Raphinha scored, but I'm sorry, I've also seen Ziyech score in the Champions League, against Man City, against Atleti, against Spurs a few times, etc, etc. And as Tuchel said himself in an interview that I literally even showed last time, he admitted himself that there isn't really like a position for Ziyech as a right winger in this existing setup. For me to sell a right winger that doesn't really have room here to sign another right winger who only plays as a winger on the left or on the right, that is what Raphinha does since his time back at Rennes and for Leeds United as well too, feels like an incredibly sideways move. And I'd also worry that potentially Raphinha could face some difficulties as well, adapting to a more alien way of playing when we're committing so much money towards the player. For me, maybe I should do a separate video on this, like a separate discussion video, but is the back three system potentially acting as a bottleneck currently? Because I just feel like with some of the wingers and players we're looking at, you know, let them cook in their best positions. But yeah, that's just my thoughts and opinions behind the story as well. Let's continue to see what happens as this window does develop. And right now, let's end things with a final report in Adrien Rabiot. And let's talk the latest news currently surrounding Adrien Rabiot. It's quite interesting. These reports have been simmering in Italy over the past few weeks currently. And a story finally came out from like a reputable source in the UK from Jason Burt of The Telegraph. And essentially, Rabiot has plans to join a Premier League club. That's what he wants to do, and Juventus have accepted his request to leave them during the summer window. He has 1 year left in his deal, and the value for the player could be between 13 to 17 million pounds. The player is determined and very excited to work in the Premier League. He feels like it's not a risk to sign for a Premier League team as he safeguards his sport midfield for France's, of course, World Cup squads. Moving on though, of course, some reports though have said that Tuchel is a fan of the player, and Bert does mention the relationship that both him and Tuchel had. Now for me, there have been some maybe conflicting reports surrounding him. Basically, of course, there was some arguments and differences between Rabiot and Paris Saint-Germain at the time, basically. This all stemmed from the player not committing to signing a new deal. All those seasons back, he had tons of interest everywhere. We know that his mother is very influential when it comes to, the player's career choice, and of course, acting as his representative as well too. And there were some disciplinary issues issued by Tuchel at the time due to the player not committing his future to the club, essentially. This doesn't, though, really support the fact that both him and Tuchel would have like bad blood forever. I do think that's a bit too black and white to simply see things like that. And naturally, even supporting those arguments, if that was the case, nothing supports the fact that nothing would change over how many years later. The reality is that managers tend to like players that they've already worked with, but let's focus on the details of the reports that came up from the UK. Nothing is suggesting yet that we are looking to sign the player. He's just becoming an interesting option that is available in the window to be looked at. It seems that reports from Italy seem to strongly suggest more the contact between Tuchel and Rabiot. And I do find that quite interesting for myself when I'm like collecting these stories and giving my thoughts, opinions on them, that of course journalists from different nations have their own sources and information they hear. But at times I think that you can combine all these stories together to kind of paint a picture. Now, I don't want to have too many strong thoughts and opinions behind this currently because there's nothing substantial at this point in time. But I guess the only thing that I can say is that maybe we should keep an eye out over this deal in case anything happens as this window does progress, because we know Rabiot wants to sign for a top team in this country. He's already ruled out signing for Newcastle. So let's keep an eye out and let's see how this story continues to progress. So on that note, that is the end for today's videos. What do you guys think about the stories? Please share your thoughts and opinions below. And on that note, I'm NiniFC, this is BlueLionsTV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.